I'll go ahead and call us to order, and welcome to the regular board meeting of the directors of the Vallecitos Water District on Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021 at 5 p.m. I'm going to read a quick notice to the public, as I have been doing since taking over as president, and as this board has been doing for the last 10 months or so. Due to the evolving situation with the COVID-19 novel coronavirus and Executive Order N3520, so long as state or local public health officials have imposed or recommended social distancing measures, Vallecitos Water District will hold future meetings via teleconferencing and allow members of the public to observe and address the meeting telephonically or otherwise electronically. During this period of time, Vallecitos Water District will not be making any physical location available for members of the public to observe the meeting and offer public comment. The public is encouraged to watch and participate in the meeting from the safety of their homes. The meeting can be viewed on the agenda page located on the main page of the district's website. Public comments or questions can be submitted to the following email address: publiccomment@vwd.org. All written comments that are received at least 90 minutes before the meeting will be provided to the board, and a record of the receipt of comment will be noted during the meeting. Members of the public viewing the meeting via Zoom video conferencing platform can express their desire to provide input at the appropriate time by utilizing the raised hand function. Additional instructions for online participation will be posted on the district's website at www.vwd.org/meetings. Thank you, and welcome to all those joining us from the public. We'll go ahead and do a roll call. Director Hernandez.
Yes.
Director Boyd-Hodgson.
Present.
Director Pennick.
Yes.
Director Ellithart.
Here.
And I am here as well. So we got all the board members in attendance. I'll entertain a motion to adopt tonight's agenda, please.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to adopt the agenda. Is there a second?
Second, Hernandez.
Thank you. We have a motion by Director Boyd-Hodgson and a second by Hernandez to adopt tonight's agenda. We'll do another roll call vote. Director Ellithart.
Yes.
Director Pennick.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Yes.
Director Boyd-Hodgson.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, so the motion passes unanimously. Moving right along, looking at my notes here. Do we have any public comment at this time, General Manager Perum?
No, we did not receive any email correspondence by the 3:30 cutoff time, and none of the 4 attendees have indicated a desire to speak.
Okay, then we'll move on to the consent calendar, and all matters listed under the consent calendar will be voted upon by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or member of the public requests that a particular item or items be removed from the consent calendar, in which case it'll be considered separately under action items. Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent calendar?
So moved, Ellithart.
Okay, thank you, Director Ellithart. Is there a second?
Second, Pennick.
Okay, we have a motion to approve tonight's consent calendar by Director Ellithart, second by Director Pennick. Before we do so, is there any discussion or questions or any items that need separating? Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and conduct another roll call vote. Director Boyd-Hodgson.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Yes.
Director Pennick.
Yes.
Director Ellithart.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. So we'll move into action items. We have one action item tonight, item 2.1. It's the Association of California Water Agencies Region 10 board nomination. Glenn, did you want to kick us off with a quick little introduction?
Yeah, so at the last board meeting, we introduced the topic that Aqua Region 10 is looking for anybody interested in sitting on the board. Our board had a discussion and Director Hernandez expressed his desire, and I was directed to bring this item forward because in order to express your interest, we do need a resolution adopted by the member agency. So that's what this item is. It's a resolution supporting Director Hernandez's interest for a seat on the Aqua Region 10 board. And it is a resolution, so it requires a roll call vote, but we're doing all roll call votes anyway. So.
Okay, great. If there's not any discussion or either before there's a motion, I'll entertain a motion to approve item 2.1 and recommending or having staff write a recommendation on behalf of the board to, I don't know if nominate's the right word, but to recommend Director Hernandez for the Region 10 board position. I'll make a motion to move forward item 2.1 as staff presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay,
Pennick.
thank you. So we have a motion to move forward item 2.1 by Director Sanella and a second by Director Pennick. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and conduct a roll call vote. Director Hernandez,
Yes.
Director Elithart,
Yes.
Director Boyd Hodgson,
Yes.
Director Pennick,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Motion passes unanimously. Go get them, Jim.
Yes.
That ends our action items, and we'll move on to our reports section 3.1, General Manager's Report. We'll start with.
Yeah, just a couple. As the board knows, we're still making progress on our San Marcos Sewer Interceptor project. The line has been placed underneath San Marcos Boulevard, and we've restored all the traveled lanes in the westbound direction. And the contractor is still working on restoring the number 2 lane in the eastbound direction. And we think it'll be another 2 to 3 weeks, and they'll have the traffic restored, and then they'll work on finishing the paving out there to make sure it's in a condition acceptable to the city of San Marcos. Next item, just wanted to announce an award that we recently received, and normally we'd be carrying hardware up at the board and handing it off to the president and whatever board members wanted to receive it, but we're doing this virtually. So at the CASA Winter Conference back on January 27th and 28th, and CASA is the California Association of Sanitation Agencies, Vallecitos was awarded a trophy, and it was for the 2020 Award of Excellence for Innovation and Resiliency in the large agency category. And that was for our Mar Reservoir water quality improvement. You may all remember that we have a device that we placed out at Mar Reservoir. It's called an algae sonic device. And what it does is it retards algae growth and inhibits it. It's very innovative. We're one of the very few agencies in the United States that employs it or has deployed it. It's a country from Europe that actually manufactures it. And we put it out there, and it floats on the surface. It has solar panels. It measures when there's algae growth in the reservoir, and it communicates via satellites to the home base in Europe. And then they send a signal back to the device that sends out an ultrasonic wave frequency to kill the particular bacteria. So it's really innovative, and it's helped us really reduce our chemical costs. And obviously dumping chemicals into a water body is never your first choice, but historically that's been one of the only ways to prevent algae growth. So this was good, and it's certainly nice to be recognized by a national agency like CASA for being innovative. So on behalf of the board, we accepted the award, and it's an awesome accomplishment. So, and I think a few of the board members were at the CASA conference. They may have heard this firsthand, but I just wanted to share it with the rest of the board.
That's great news, Glenn, and thank you to all the staff members that worked on that project, and certainly appreciate what they've done, and I'm happy to hear that we were recognized. That's really neat. I wasn't at the CASA conference, but so I wasn't aware of that, but that's great.
And I have just one more update on the GM update, just about COVID. So the good news is we've kind of turned the corner here at Vallecitos. As you know, we were considered an outbreak work agency. We had 3 outbreaks in a 14-day period, and that required all this extensive weekly testing. And you couldn't get out of the outbreak until you had 100% negative tests of all the people that were tested. So we originally started testing all 100 employees, 100 plus employees on a weekly basis. And then we had to shut down the building for a while just to make sure the outbreak didn't spread and to control the cost, because it was costing us $200 per employee per week to be tested. So it was just the operations folks that were here for the first 3 weeks of the new year. And good news is their last couple test results came back with 0 positives. We're now out of the outbreak category. Doesn't mean we're out of the woods. Clearly, COVID is still here, but we are going to start introducing some folks back into the workplace, some of the admin folks. I'm back in the office. My managers are back in the office, and we're going to start pulling in selective employees, mostly the ones that it just hasn't been easy for them to work at home, either by the nature of their job or their home condition may not be suitable for working. But we're always going to be mindful of safety protocols around the office. So we'll introduce people slowly and monitor things. And as the countywide conditions improve, we'll bring more folks back to the office. But just want to share some good news on the COVID front with the board. And that's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you. That is good news. We'll move on to item 3.2, District Legal Counsel. Mr. Gilpin, do you have any report tonight?
Thanks, President Snell. I just wanted to give a brief update on the Brown Act. I've been doing these periodically just as refreshers. Tonight, I wanted to talk about the limitations on internal communications. Those are communications between directors, staff, and directors outside of a public meeting. The Brown Act prohibits deliberation outside of the public setting, and that refers to really the collective decision making of the board. It includes exchange of facts and that are preliminary to the ultimate decision. So this is commonly referred to as a serial meeting, where a majority of the board, and in this case it would be 3 board members, have collectively garnered information, discussed, or come to it or deliberated an item that is within the district's business. This can occur in a number of fashions. Director A calls Director B to talk to them about an agenda item, and the 2 of them exchange their positions on it. And then Director B calls Director C, relays the conversation, and finds out where Director C is. It could also occur where a general manager calls all 5 folks, and in that conversation, he's able to give them information, but as part of it, exchanges where at least 3 of the members are with the other board members. So that's the situation. The Brown Act does not preclude employees or officials from answering questions or providing information outside of a meeting. And the catch here is, as long as a person does not communicate the comment or positions of the members to other members. So when we're providing information or talking to one another about agenda items, it's okay to exchange the information, but just not provide the positions of other members. And one of the ways my office and our clients deal with this is particularly on email exchanges. Whenever we're including board members, our advice is to BCC everybody. And you can indicate in the email that you've BCC'd the board. That's how I would report or provide information to you. What that does is it prohibits inadvertent reply all exchange, which is where a violation would occur. The last thing I have is I've spoken with GM Pruitt, and the redistricting requirements that are now in place in California with the update of the Census Bureau data release, we're required to update our census information regarding the various districts within the district for election purposes, and he and his staff are working on that, but that is something that will need to be completed this year. That's everything I have, President Sanella, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I did have one question. probably more appropriate for Glenn, but what's the timing on the redistricting? Kind of when are we going to kick it off? When are we going to start? Are you going to hire a consultant? Are you going to handle it internally? Do you not know yet?
We don't know yet. It's pretty premature. I don't even know that we have all the data yet. So I'll talk with I've talked with James Gumpel, our district engineer, and he said in the past he's been involved in that. He oversees our geographical information system. So we have access to a lot of the data that would help us to spatially align where the district boundaries are based on population and other factors. So when we get all that data in, we'll start looking at it. We'll meet with our attorneys, and then we'll figure out if we need some assistance. I'm not sure what level of involvement the board can or can't have in the redistricting. And obviously, there's a lot of political sensitivities with the districting. So it's early days, but we'll keep you updated as we progress on that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board before we move forward? Okay, item 3.3. San Diego County Water Authority report, Director Althart.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I attended my first full-length Water Authority board meeting on January 28th. It was a very long routine meeting. It went from 9 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon with no break. So I think I took one for the team on this one. So. But anyway, there was, as long as it was, there was only a couple action items that I wanted to highlight. There was only 3 total out of this whole board meeting. But the first one was the board adopted resolutions honoring Betty Evans and Christy Guerin upon their retirements as a board from the board of directors. So I obviously am taking Betty Evans' place, and Kim Thorner is taking Christy Guerin's place at the Livenhain as their representative. So the other action item was the board authorized award of a construction contract for about $11.4 million for construction of the Hawk Mesa Storage Reservoir project. This provides operational storage on the finished water pipeline from the Twin Oaks Valley treatment plant to the aqueducts 1 and 2 up in Valley Center. So those are really the only 2 action items. There was an important item presented by General Manager Sandy Curl. And this item was kicking off their budget process. And so they budget on a 2-year basis. So this upcoming budget process is for FY22 and 23 combined. General Manager was soliciting input from the board and the member agencies. Their goal is budget adoption by the board on the June 24th meeting. And by way of reference, just to get some perspective, the last budget, which covered FY20 and 21, that 2-year time period, was about $1.7 billion with a B total. And some of the input that Sandy got at the meeting itself was already to try to hold the line on rates. But what's obvious is that just like us, water purchases are about 64% of the Water Authority's budget, and that's purchases from MET and IID and the other contracts they have. About 18% is debt service, 10% is CIP expenditures, and 6% of operating departments. So, I think we're about 70 or 75% of our water operations budget is water purchases from the Water Authority. So rates obviously are very dependent on the metropolitan rate making process. So we'll see how that goes. We had a closed session on the MWD rate cases litigation. That's about it for the board meeting. I did get my committee assignments. I'm on the Legislation and Public Outreach Committee, Water Planning and Environmental Committee, the Colorado River Work Group, and I'm also an alternate to the Sandag Regional Planning Committee. That's about it. Like I said, it was a 5-hour board meeting, mostly informational items, and there were such things as public outreach, water supply conditions throughout the state, the Bay Delta update, and federal and state legislative updates. So I would highly encourage anybody that wants to get any of this information to go on the Water Authority's website. Very informative package and a little bit overwhelming to me for my first time a full-length board meeting. So that's my report.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being there for us, and thanks for the comprehensive report. Is there any questions for Director Elthart? Director or General Manager Broom?
Yeah, just if I can add on to Director Elitharp's statement. So one of the things that, as he mentioned, the water authorities, the cost of water is a big driver for us. And it's always difficult. They don't adopt their budget until like June 24th. So that makes it a little tough for us to propose a budget to our board when we don't always know what the water authority budget and cost of water is going to be. So we do the best that we can. And I think in the past, we've done a really good job, and I think we'll continue to do so. But it's a bit challenging. So Director Elitharp mentioned that they're soliciting input from the general managers, and we always give them the same input every year. Do it earlier, because it would help us prepare our budgets and talk about our rates. So I just wanted to add that and give that kind of local flavor for how the water authority affects what we do.
Okay, great. No other questions? Okay, we'll move on to item 3.4, Encino Wastewater Authority. I'll go ahead and kick us off, Jim, and then I'll turn it over to you. I'm not sure if your committee has met. The Policy and Finance Committee is meeting next week, so there's nothing to report there, but we did have a regular full board meeting on the 27th. I know that Director Hernandez was there, Director Boyd Hodgson was there, and Glenn, I think I even saw you there as well. So, and I attended it as well. It was my first full meeting with Encina, and it was very informative. It was your typical kind of first meeting of the year, or our last meeting of the year, I should say. No, first meeting of the year, sorry, January 27th, where they recognized some of their employees for outstanding performance throughout 2020. They do things a little bit differently than we do. They have a lot of their items are on the consent calendar, which I thought was kind of interesting. So they only had 2 action items. I guess it's not too dissimilar than how we do it, but it just seemed like a lot of the things that they were covering in consent might have been more suitable for a regular item. But like I said, it was my first time, so maybe I'm wrong. But some of the things they covered, they gave us an operations report for 2020. They gave us the monthly flow and capacity management report. Again, that was in consent. We did have a closed session where we were talking about some labor agreements that were left over from last year. And then we came out of the closed session, and then our 2 action items were the committee assignments for 2021. They have 2 committees, the Capital Improvement Committee and the Policy and Finance. They formally put me on the Policy and Finance and Director Hernandez on the Capital Improvement Committee. And then our other action item was the 2020 Tactical Plan Achievement Report. And essentially they went through all of their 2020 projects and achievements that EWA accomplished, and then talked about how they were aligned with their 5-year strategic plan, each of the items and the things that they had accomplished throughout 2020. So it was a good first meeting, very informative, nothing controversial at the board meeting. And Jim, I don't know if did the Capital Improvement Committee meet yet?
No, it meets on the 17th of this month. And Mike, you did a fine job, pretty much. We did also achieve the California Associated Sanitary Agencies Excellence of Innovation in our primary effluent conveyance rehab project, a monster project for us, and 30-inch diversion pipes with 4 pumps moving around the conveyance while they were doing the rehab at $40,000 a day for those pumps. I was astounded, but I mean, when you saw it, I mean, it was quite an undertaking. So the award was well deserved, and that rounds up the report for Encina, I believe.
Okay. We'll move on to item 3.5, standing committees. Have any of the standing committees met since the last time we met? I see Director Boyd Hodgson, you're nodding an affirmative. Please feel free to report out.
Or thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, President Snella. The Public Awareness Personnel and Policy Committee met this week, and I'm pleased to report that we're making progress on issues of inclusivity at Vallecitos, establishing and organizing an administrative code, and exploring some exciting possibilities for events and virtual programs to increase the awareness of the great work that's being done here at Vallecitos.
Awesome. Thank you. Have any of the other committees met?
No,
President Snell.
Yes, Director Elgar.
Yeah, at our last board meeting, I had mentioned we had an engineering committee meeting on January 11th, but I declined to report on it at that time. But I wanted to wait till the meeting minutes got into the board package, so they're included in tonight's board package. You know, three items from that engineering committee meeting went to the last board meeting for action. Those were the 2020 Urban Water Management Plan, the aeration basement improvements at Meadowlark, and the land outfall condition assessment. We had several other project updates, and everybody can read about those in the minutes. We did have a nice asset management condition assessment plan update from Susan Bowman. And we committed to meeting monthly on the Monday following the first board meeting of the month. I think that applies for every month except September doesn't follow that pattern, but we had a very productive meeting and a lot of good project updates. So that's my report.
Great. And the Finance Committee has not met, but I did ask Glenn to check with availability for the Monday, the 22nd. So if Director Boyd Hodgson, if you're available, and we'll go ahead and try to have a finance meeting at that time. Okay, moving right along. 3.6, Director's reports on meetings, conferences, and seminars attended. Did anybody attend any conferences or seminars? Director Boyd Hodgson.
I did, thank you. And I'm glad that I have the opportunity to speak about it because I'm not exactly sure what the next steps are in the event that I do attend a conference. So I did attend the CASA conference, and I found it very interesting. I'll be preparing, my own notes for, available to the public if they would like to read it. But I'm wondering what the requirement is as far as putting together a report for the other directors. How does that work?
So I'll take a stab at just more kind of historical what we've done. We keep it relatively casual, but we do like to have the directors share what something that they learned, or if there's something that might be pertinent to Vallecitos, or something that might be a little valuable tidbit for a takeaway from the conference that can benefit maybe some of the directors who didn't come. But then the other part of that is like you noted, Director Boyd Hodgson, is the benefit for the public to hear that we attended an event or a conference, and this is what we learned, and maybe there's some bit of information or a legislative update, for example, that might benefit the public as well. And Glenn, I don't know if I missed anything on that, but you feel free to chime in too.
No, I agree. It's usually pretty informal here. There's no requirement for written reports or anything like that, but we do like them to be somewhat substantial, to say, not just I went to a conference, it was great. So yeah, usually directors pick a particular topic they heard about, maybe go more in depth than that. But yeah, it's not very structured.
Well, then let me add, because I attended the same conference, and there were a couple of things that piqued my interest specifically on finance, which I stay away from as much as possible. The roundtable there hit right on the head. We got a very good rating, a Fitch rating, and one of the reason is because of our reserve. And I know they've screwed that around. Skewed, not screwed, skewed that around. Well, they may have screwed it too, but they've skewed that around and putting the emphasis in the wrong place there. Our reserves are one of the big items that creates our Fitch rating, which creates our bond sales if we need them. And with money as cheap as it is right now, one of the things I hope we take up at the engineering committee is, are there projects out there that we should be looking at to bond for when money is as cheap as it is. So that was the one item that caught my eye. The other was, and it's always very, very interesting, is the Washington report. It was somewhat diminished. This virtual thing, it works, but not as well, I don't believe, as in person. But the good news is, think what you will, but our vice president is very attuned to water. So we're gonna have a friend in water there. And the other thing that I got out of it was, perhaps now, with money being as cheap and as free as they lend, we may have an infrastructure bill coming this year, which would help all of the water agencies, the sewer agencies, and they're hoping to decouple that from transportation. And that may give us a better opportunity. So those are the two big takeaways I had on the conference.
So I'll add to that as well. One of the things that was discussed at length during the finance portion was the issuance of debt. And so I look forward to more discussions in our general meetings about what our plan is for that and how, issuing debt is a good idea. As far as the legislative update as well, it seems like Vallecitos isn't unique in that there are a lot of folks that are really suffering right now, having trouble paying their water bill. There are a couple of Senate bills in progress that I think have been mentioned before in our meetings, Senate bills 222 and 223, that are designed to provide some relief. The way that it's going to be structured, though, apparently, which may or may not be implemented smoothly, is that the federal government will then send out money to the states, which will then be sent out to the water districts to help folks. So it's going to be probably a long time coming. That's was sort of the takeaway that I took from it. But it's good that the folks in Washington are thinking about all of these folks that are having trouble paying their water bills. We've got about 1 in 12 folks that have already accrued $500 or more in water debt in California. The aggregate is over 1 billion with a B. That is outstanding of water debt. So there is a real need there. Thanks for the information about how to report out about this. I'm still learning, so I do appreciate that, and I'll know what to do next time. Thank you.
Awesome job. Any other conferences? Director Elthar.
I attended the CASA Winter Conference as well, and being a CASA board member, I'm a little bit pressured to do that, but I always find it enjoyable anyway. So, for the highlights for me, I found the keynote speaker on the first day. Her talk was very interesting. Her name is Heather McGowan. She's the author of a book called The Adaptation Advantage: Leading in the Future of Work. Kind of the theme of it is kind of how the nature of work is fundamentally changing, and it's particularly relevant in this age of the pandemic. And so she talked about a lot of things, characteristics people are going to need to have and kind of in the new normal, and that's things like adaptability, willingness to learn, being able to reskill yourself for new or changing jobs, being collaborative, and getting what I liked this quote. She said, "Getting the best instead of the most out of people." And I think that's a really good distinction. The roundtable that I sat in on was also the federal legislative update from Eric Saperstein. And I took the same things out of it that the other directors did. He emphasized that water is going to be much more prominent, and also climate resiliency projects are going to be important. And he indicated that there's talk of a $1 to $2 trillion sized infrastructure package being discussed kind of behind the scenes already. So I thought it was a very interesting conference as usual. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Any other report outs on those items? Okay.
Oh yeah, I had one more.
Yep.
I attended Council of Water Utilities was this past Monday. Let me get my notes on that. And the keynote speaker was Joaquin Escobar. He's the chairman of the State Water Resources Control Board. He had about a 35 or 40-minute talk. Really, he kind of summarized the challenges that the board's facing and priorities for the coming year. And that they kind of overlap a little bit, but the challenges he indicated were kind of the obvious things: climate change, drought management, and getting water to disadvantaged communities. Priorities for the coming year: addressing the household utility debt that Director Boyd Hodgson had mentioned. He indicated, yeah, there's a $1 billion household water debt in California alone, which to me is staggering. And in the COVID relief packages so far, there's only 600 million allocated to that nationally. So it's there's going to be a problem there. And along with that is the associated revenue loss by local agencies. So this relief really has to be directed toward local agencies. Some of the other priorities for the coming year: infrastructure needs and making that in conjunction with economic recovery. And and indicated the need for a resurgence in federal investment in wastewater infrastructure, which really hasn't happened since the formation of the EPA and the funding of public treatment works in the late 70s and early 80s. Yeah, the other kind of priority is finishing the hexavalent chromium MCL. That's all I had.
I also attended the Water Council meeting, and a couple of things I was taking away was they're on schedule for their regulations for direct potable, which is slated for 2025, which perked my mind. I know we talked about it last year, that in our budget, we were going to start beginning to look at what we at Vallecitos we want to do towards that end. And so, those projects are long in the completion and regulation. So I don't think starting now is too soon. But at least the state is on line with finishing the regulations. And I was going to ask, because they did mention this deficit, both in the income and the number of bills that have not been paid. I don't have an absolute remembrance of what we talked about last board meeting, because I think it was brought up, but I didn't think we were in such bad shape. Do I remember that correctly, Director Prune?
Yeah, well, so things are certainly worse in the COVID era than they were in the pre-COVID era. They're actually better than what we budgeted for, and that may be what you're remembering.
Yeah, that's
so. In the middle of in the beginning stages of the coronavirus, when we were preparing our budget, we didn't know what to expect. So we had done some research, and we kind of tagged this study done by the American Water Works Association, and they came up with some recommendations on how to help you with budgeting and what to expect coronavirus related impacts. So we did that, and the board approved that budget, and things are better than we budgeted, but they're worse than they were in the year before. There is a piece of information that we haven't been including in the monthly COVID financial updates that I've asked Wes to include. So at the next meeting on the 17th, you'll hear a number that will help you relate to that $1 billion. So what is our share of that $1 billion deficit? We can try to put it into context. That may be helpful.
Oh, good.
Director Althorp, are you raising your hand?
Yeah, just to kind of tag on to General Manager's comment there. One of the Water Authority reports indicated in San Diego County, there's 70,000 delinquent water accounts, just to put things in perspective.
One thing that I think,
not amounts.
70,000 accounts, number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One thing that I think we need to do to make sure things are put into context is to say how many delinquent accounts were there in a non-COVID era, because there's always delinquent accounts. So what you really want to see is what have been the impacts of COVID to make sure we understand the magnitude. And I'm not trying to downplay it. It's a big increase, but it's not from 0 to what we're seeing, 0 to 70,000. It's from some other number to 70,000 countywide. So, and we'll try to put that number into context at the meeting on the 17th.
Okay. Any other reports? Okay, great. We'll move on to item 4.1, which is just a heads up that the Urban Water Institute Virtual Spring Conference is coming up February 17th through 18th later on this month. If you're interested, I think you just reach out to Diane, right? And let her know, and she'll register you for the conference. No action needed for that one. And then move on to 5.1. Is there any director comments or future agenda items? Director Boyd Hodgson.
Just some comments. So I had the pleasure of speaking at the San Marcos Rotary Club a couple weeks ago, and I also spoke at the North County San Diego Women's March. And they were great opportunities because I talked about Vallecitos and the great work that we're doing, but I also talked about water equity, and I mentioned a little bit about Senate Bills 222 and 223 during those times. I've also had a virtual town hall. It's free and open to the public. I'll be doing that once a month. You can see that through my Facebook page. It's still up there. I had that on January 27th. As Director Elitharp mentioned, or Director Hernandez, I did attend as an alternate to the Encino Wastewater Authority. I'm an alternate, so I'm technically not a delegate, and I don't sit on those committees, but I was able to listen in a little bit, and I appreciated that opportunity. Congratulations again to General Manager Pruitt and all the folks responsible for the CASA Award, the award for innovation and resiliency. There were also 2 other nominations from Vallecitos that were considered that were just terrific. One was the public outreach for the Work We Do series of videos. That's on the Vallecitos website, and I highly encourage everyone to watch it. They're really great videos. And also the submission for Outstanding Capital Project for the Rock Springs Sewer Replacement Project. So congratulations, those were submitted as well. They weren't the winners in those categories, but they're both terrific projects, and they're on our website. And finally, I wanted to thank the finance folks for having the finance primer that Director Pennock and I attended a couple of days ago. I know it was a lot of work to put that together, and I really appreciated that that time to learn a little bit more about the budget process.
Super. Any other director's comments or future agenda items? Going. Oh, General Manager Pruitt.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the Urban Water Institute, and we're happy to have any director go that wants to go, but just remember, it's February 17th and 18th. It's the afternoon of the 17th and the morning of the 18th, and we are going to be scheduling a closed session at 3 o'clock on the 17th. So if you're planning on attending the 17th, we may either have to cut your day short at the Urban Water Institute conference, or we may need to reschedule the closed session, but whatever the board desires. I just want to make sure the board members are aware of that. It may be a conflict.
Okay, thank you. So if anybody has any conflicts or concerns, please reach out to Glenn. And if you get enough of them, Glenn, you'll make an appropriate decision. Yep. Okay. If there's no other comments, then I'll move to adjournment. And thank you all for attending, both those that are on the board and those in the public who joined us. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Can I say one thing? I did notice that there's an attendee that has raised their hand that I didn't notice before.
Oh, okay.
If you're okay, I'll give this person an opportunity to speak.
Absolutely.
Speaker with the phone number ending in 541, you can go ahead and speak now.
Good evening, everyone. This is Gail Martin calling. I'm very sorry to interrupt at the very end. I had tremendous difficulty joining the meeting this evening as there were no passcodes or meeting ID numbers listed on the website and to be able to join. And a very, very industrious young lady at the front desk worked for 15 minutes to get me onto this call, and I appreciate her help. One thing that I might signal to you all, please, those of us who are on the phone cannot see who is speaking. And if you would be so kind as to announce who you are before you start speaking so that we'll be able to follow the conversation, please. That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin, for the comment. And we're all learning as we go through this interesting year of doing these meetings through teleconferencing and video conferencing. And that's great feedback. And we'll definitely see what we can do to do better about that going forward. So thank you. Director Boyd Hodgson.
So I'm just noticing that we do have 4 attendees, and I can see, how they sign in. When we have our regular in-person meetings, members of the public must sign in, correct? With
Speaker slip.
Yeah, they have to fill out a speaker slip.
okay,
If they're going to speak, but not to attend.
okay, all right. That was my question. Thank you.
Okay, great. If there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and adjourn. And great meeting, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Have a good night.